The Met Police have faced a backlash after an officer was filmed telling a Jewish woman that the use of swastikas needed to be taken in context. This was at a pro-Palestinian rally. Have a look.
In what context is a swastika not anti-Semitic and disrupting the public order? That was my question.
I don't have an in-depth knowledge of science and symbols. I know the swastika was used by the Nazi Party during their inception and the period of them being in power in Germany in the 1930s and 40s. I am aware of that.
I just can't believe this conversation is actually happening.
So what exactly are you confused about?
What I'm confused is how you don't, in what context a swastika is not anti-Semitic. This is what I want to know. Because again...
I suppose, to some, I don't know how everybody would feel about that sign.
I mean, it is breathtaking. The footage has been widely circulated on social media, with many blasting the Met for losing control of the streets. The forces insisted the video, excuse me, was part of a wider 10-minute interaction, but is still refusing to share the full footage. With me now is the editor of the Jewish News, Richard Ferrer. Afternoon to you, Richard. If a week ago somebody had told either of us that we'd be discussing an interaction of this nature, we'd have thought they'd gone stark raving mad, even taking into context some of the weird things that people have been getting away with lately. We would have all thought, no, not that, surely the swastika. No one is going to construct an argument that there might be an understandable context for a swastika, but apparently not. This is where we are. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on. Well, yeah, I've just watched it again for about the fifth time in the last 24 hours. And on face value, yes, it does look like a very alarming exchange between a very distressed woman and an obtuse policeman hiding behind the small print in the Public Order Act. I mean, you don't have to be Jewish, do you, to understand how upsetting the presence of a swastika is on our streets. Britain stood alone against the Nazis in the darkest days of the Second World War. 60,000 British troops were killed by the Nazis in that conflict. No one in this country should require a lesson about the unparalleled evil symbolism of a swastika. Yet here we are, the Met Police, making excuses for it on our streets. So that is a fair headline reading of this story. But, and there is a but here, I do have sympathy for police at these rallies. I've attended a few myself. I have, just to get a sense of them. There are huge numbers of people. They turn up to this thing. They're fired up. They're passionate. They're constantly on the move. Police are stationed, as that gentleman was, in very specific areas. Often they're outnumbered 50 to 1, 100 to 1. It's important to remember they are there primarily to keep the peace. On Saturday, there was a counter demonstration as well, which made it even more intense. They're not set up to challenge and to confront people. They often do it after the event. So I do have some sympathy for the police.
Would it not? I totally agree with you. And we've talked about these issues from a police perspective. And as you rightly say, this is about the police want to keep the peace. And one wrong move from the police could mean an inflammatory situation. And that's unfortunate that they sometimes have to take a step back and then we'll try and investigate something later because they hope they've got the video footage to back it up. So you're right, I do get that. But I suppose what's irked and absolutely angered a lot of people is what wasn't needed really was the revisionism of what a swastika might well mean to some people, and that there could be a context. And it might have been better for the copper to just go, do you know what, that sounds terrible. I promise you we will look into this. I can't specifically act now, rather than the sort of rather curious rant that this guy went on.
Look, I mean, he's not the Home Secretary. He's a Bobby on the beat. True. So it's very difficult for him to convey that. As I said, in a very intense situation, of course, waving a swastika or chanting jihad on the streets of London, it's reprehensible. In the case of the word jihad, it's a direct incite to violence, and that needs to be tackled with the full force of the law. The trouble is, occasionally our free society and our freedom of speech laws can be shown up as a bit of a toothless ass. But there's good reason for that. You know, our laws fall on the right side of freedom of speech. We're a secular democracy. Maybe Scotland is, based on your conversation earlier, perhaps is moving in a different direction. But we're a secular democracy. We're not a police state where threats to the public, both genuine and perceived by the state, are cracked down on. And there they would be harshly dealt with. So ultimately, it's a change in the law and how police execute it. Currently, police have got their hands tied. They do their investigation after the event because they're there to keep the peace. We've seen in the past a small handful of policemen engage with a large group of very emotional protesters, and they get set upon. Police get injured. You know, the Mark Rowley has got a duty to the care of his police on the streets. I think perhaps as much as the safety of the marchers. So all that needs to be taken into consideration.
Got it. Listen, Richard, thank you for your time. Richard Ferrer, who's the editor of Jewish News, with us here on TalkTV.